I never thought much about apartments before. They were just places to sleep, eat, and go about your day. But all that changed when I moved into 1407 East Grove Avenue. I had just signed the lease, and the place seemed like a steal for the price. It wasn't the most modern building, but it had charm. Old wooden floors, vintage wallpaper, and an unsettling quiet that almost felt comforting. From the moment I moved in, things felt off. I chalked it up to the usual jitters that come with moving to a new place. But that quickly turned into something more disturbing. I was in my late 20s, new to the city of Detroit, and eager to start my life after some personal setbacks. The apartment was supposed to be my fresh start, a new chapter. But that first night changed everything. It was around 2 a.m. when I heard the knocks. First, I thought I was just hearing things, but the knocks came again, slow and deliberate, as if someone was trying to get my attention. I froze, my heart pounding. The sound wasn't coming from the door. It was coming from within the apartment, specifically from the walls. Knock, knock, knock. I got up to check, but the apartment was silent once again. No one in the hallway, no strange noises, just me standing in my kitchen with a cold sweat running down my back. I tried to ignore it, thinking I was just imagining things. Maybe the pipes were old, maybe it was the wind. But every night, the knocks came back. Louder, closer, as if whatever was on the other side of the wall was getting bolder. But it wasn't the knocking that terrified me the most. It was the whispers that started a few nights later. I woke up around 3 a.m., my head spinning. The whispers weren't coming from outside. No, they were inside the apartment, right next to me. They were faint at first, like a breath against my ear. But then they grew louder. "Get out," they said. "You shouldn't be here." I shot up from bed, looking around. No one was there. No one could have been. My apartment was locked, sealed tight. But the voice, it sounded so real. It was like someone was just inches away from me, hidden in the shadows. Couldn't sleep that night. I sat up in bed, staring at the walls, waiting for the next whisper, the next knock. But nothing happened. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. The next morning, I tried to shrug it off. Maybe it was just my mind playing tricks on me. But then, something happened that I couldn't explain. I went into the bathroom and noticed something on the mirror. Condensation. Not the usual fog from a hot shower, but a message, slowly appearing before my eyes. "Leave before it's too late." I nearly choked on my own breath. My hands shook as I reached for the towel, wiping the mirror, but the message didn't disappear. It stayed there. I ran my fingers over the words, and for a moment, I thought I felt a cold, clammy hand brush against my skin. That's when I knew. Something was very wrong with this apartment. The next few days felt like a blur. I couldn't focus at work, couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Every corner of the apartment felt oppressive, like it was closing in on me. The strange noises, the whispers, the cold spots. Everything felt like a warning, but I couldn't figure out what it was trying to tell me. That evening, after another long, restless day, I decided I needed to get out of the apartment. I went for a walk around the neighborhood, trying to clear my head, but as I walked the streets, I noticed something strange. Every person I passed, every single one, looked at me the same way, with an unsettling, empty stare, like they knew something I didn't. But when I tried to make eye contact, they'd quickly look away, as though embarrassed by their own gaze. It didn't make sense. Why was everyone acting like this? I hurried back to the apartment, locking the door behind me. I tried to tell myself it was all in my head, stress, exhaustion. But as I climbed the stairs to the second floor, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was following me. I turned around several times, but no one was there. Still, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I couldn't explain it, but I felt like I wasn't alone. When I reached my door, I saw something on the floor. A small, neatly folded piece of paper. My breath caught in my throat as I bent down to pick it up. It was written in dark ink, jagged, almost frenzied handwriting. "They've been waiting for you. Don't let them in." I froze. Who wrote this? And what did it mean? I turned the paper over, but there was nothing else. No clue, just those terrifying words. My heart started to race as I shoved the paper into my pocket and hurried inside. Once inside, I locked the door and rushed to the living room, but my mind was spinning. There was no way I was imagining this. No way it could be all in my head. I had to find answers. I started researching the building, its history. I combed through old newspapers and online forums, looking for any mention of the apartment complex. What I found was worse than I could have imagined. There had been a fire here years ago. It was a massive blaze that took the lives of several tenants. But it wasn't the fire itself that caught my attention. It was the report of the building's original owner, a man named Jacob Blackwell. According to local rumors, Blackwell was obsessed with something dark. It was said that he had been involved in occult rituals, something to do with summoning spirits. There were whispers that he had made a deal with something otherworldly, something he couldn't control. The fire, it seemed, wasn't an accident. It was part of something much worse. As I read further, I found an entry on a community board, a survivor of the fire. Her post was chilling. Don't stay in apartment 1407. I made the mistake of staying too long. They never left. I still hear them even after all these years. I slammed my laptop shut, my hands shaking uncontrollably. The air in the room grew colder, and I could feel the weight of something watching me. The whispers began again, louder this time. You're still here. Why haven't you left yet? The knocking started, too. This time, it wasn't just from the walls, it was coming from inside the apartment. The floorboards creaked underfoot, and the walls groaned as if something was trying to break through. I tried to convince myself that I was just losing my mind, but then I saw it. In the reflection of the hallway mirror, I saw a figure standing behind me. A tall, shadowy shape, its features obscured by darkness. I spun around, heart racing, but no one was there. The figure was still in the mirror, and this time it was closer. I ran through the apartment, my heart pounding, my breath sharp and panicked. I didn't know where I was going, but I had to get away. Away from whatever was in this place. Away from whatever was following me. I stumbled into the kitchen, and for a moment, I just stood there, hands gripping the counter, trying to steady myself. My mind was racing, my body on edge. I glanced toward the hallway mirror again, and for a second, I thought I saw something move in the reflection. Something familiar. I turned to face the mirror, my legs frozen in place. There was nothing there, just my own trembling reflection, pale and terrified. But as I reached out to touch the glass, my fingertips brushed against it, and the coldness shot through me like ice water. That's when I heard the scratching. Came from the walls again, but this time it wasn't knocking. It was something far worse. Scratching, clawing, like something trapped inside the walls, desperately trying to get out. The sound was almost unbearable. It rattled my bones and sent a wave of nausea over me. I couldn't escape it. It felt as though the apartment itself was alive, its walls pulsing with something dark, something hungry. I bolted toward the door, but before I could reach the handle, the lights flickered. Then, they went out entirely, plunging me into total darkness. My pulse raced as I fumbled around, trying to find my phone. I finally grabbed it and turned on the flashlight, but when the beam hit the living room wall, I froze. There, written in something dark and wet, was a message. "We're waiting." I felt sick. The words were smeared as if something had dragged its fingers across the wall, leaving behind a trail of something foul. I could feel it now, that creeping sensation, like something was in the room with me, just out of sight, watching. Suddenly, a loud crash came from behind me. I whipped around, but the room was empty. Still, the sense of dread intensified. I heard it again, this time from the floor above. The sound of something heavy, something scraping against the floor, dragging itself slowly. I ran to the stairwell, desperate to escape. But as I opened the door, I was hit by the scent. Something rancid, like rotting flesh and decayed wood. I recoiled, nearly gagging, but forced myself to climb the stairs. My mind was racing. I had to get out. I had to get away from this place. I reached the top floor and looked around. Everything was eerily quiet. But then, I noticed something strange. The door to apartment 1407 wasn't like the others. It was warped, as though something had been trying to break through from the other side. The wood was splintered, and the edges of the door were dark, stained, as if something had been clawing at it for years. I stepped closer, and that's when I heard it. The whispers. They were coming from inside the apartment. Faint at first, but growing louder, more desperate. "Help us." I pressed my ear against the door, my heartbeat racing in my chest. It was then that I noticed something that sent a chill down my spine. The doorknob was turning, slowly, as if someone or something was trying to open it from the inside. I stumbled back, too terrified to move, but then I heard it. A voice, but not one I recognized. It was low, guttural, like it was coming from the depths of the earth itself. "You shouldn't have come here." I screamed and turned to run, but before I could, the door to the apartment behind me slammed open with a deafening crash. My flashlight flickered once more, and in the brief moment of light, I saw it. A figure. A tall, skeletal figure with hollow eyes, its mouth stretched wide in a grotesque grin. It stood in the doorway, staring at me, its skin blackened and decayed. I tried to scream, but my voice caught in my throat. It took one slow step forward, its bony fingers twitching as if to reach out and grab me. I bolted, running back down the stairs, my breath coming in gasps. I could feel the cold breath on my neck, the whispers growing louder with each step. The thing was following me, its presence pressing in on me, suffocating. I burst through the exit door, into the alley behind the building, but it didn't stop. The whispers didn't stop. They followed me out, the darkness spilling into the world outside. I ran down the street, but when I looked back, the apartment building was still there, dark, silent, watching. I never went back to that apartment. Couldn't. And every time I close my eyes, I hear the whispers. They never left. And I know deep down that they're still waiting, still watching. But the worst part is the feeling that no matter where I go, I'll never truly escape. The darkness follows you, you see. It never stops. And eventually it finds you. It's been 2 weeks since I left that cursed place, but I still feel its presence every day. The nightmares have started again, but now they're worse, more vivid, more real. I wake up in a cold sweat, and every time I close my eyes, I can see it. The figure in the doorway, its hollow eyes locked onto mine. I tried to tell myself it was just my mind, that I was overreacting. But I know the truth now. It wasn't just a bad dream. It wasn't a product of stress or exhaustion. That thing is real. And it's not done with me. I've been staying at a friend's apartment in the city, far away from 1407 East Grove. His name is Jake. He's been my friend for years, and I figured I could find some peace there. But it didn't work. Every night, I feel the darkness pressing in. The whispers still haunt me, even in my dreams. Jake noticed it too. At first, he thought it was just me being paranoid, but after a while, he started hearing things too. It was subtle at first, just strange sounds, like someone walking around the apartment when no one was there. But then it escalated. One night, we were watching TV in the living room. The lights were off, the only light coming from the screen. Suddenly, the temperature in the room dropped. I could see my breath in the air. I glanced over at Jake, and he was staring at the door, his face pale. I followed his gaze, and my stomach dropped. The door handle was turning, slowly, clicked as if someone was trying to get in. I jumped up, heart racing, but before I could even reach the door, the handle stopped. And then, from the other side, I heard the scratching. The same sound that haunted me in that apartment. The same noise I had heard from the walls, like claws dragging across the wood. Jake and I stood there in silence, both of us frozen. The air around us felt thick, suffocating. I wanted to run, but I couldn't move. The door creaked open just a fraction, and for a moment, we both just stared at the dark hallway beyond. Then, without warning, the door slammed shut with a force that rattled the walls. I ran to the door, flung it open, but there was nothing. The hallway was empty, still, silent, but I knew it wasn't over. It was never over. Later that night, as we sat in the living room, trying to rationalize what had just happened, we both heard it, the whisper. It wasn't coming from the walls this time. It was coming from the dark corner of the room, just behind the couch. A voice, low and raspy, like it was trying to crawl out of the very shadows. "You can't escape." Jake looked at me, his face a mixture of fear and confusion. What the hell was that? I didn't have an answer. I just knew that it was still there. The thing from 1407 East Grove followed me. It had followed me here, and now it had Jake too. We decided to leave the apartment that night. We didn't even pack our things. We just ran. But it didn't stop. We went to a nearby motel, thinking we'd be safe for the night, but the whispers followed. The knocking, the scratching. It followed us all the way there, relentless and unyielding. The motel room was small, dark, and filled with that same oppressive feeling. We tried to sleep, but neither of us could. We stayed awake, listening to the sounds that seemed to come from all around us. At around 3 a.m., the door to our motel room creaked open. Neither of us had touched the handle. Neither of us had moved. I looked over at Jake, but he was already staring at the door, his face white with terror. And there it was again, the scratching. But this time it wasn't coming from the walls. It was coming from inside the room. I don't remember exactly what happened after that. It's all a blur of panic, adrenaline, and fear. All I remember is that we ran. We ran out of the motel in the middle of the night, into the cold, dark street. We haven't been back to the city since. We haven't gone anywhere near 1407 East Grove. But it doesn't matter. The whispers are still with me. The thing is still following me. I can feel its presence, always. No matter where I go, no matter how far I run. It's there. It's waiting. I don't know if it's the building itself, or if it's something in me, something that it's attached to, but I'm terrified. I know one thing for sure. It will never let me go. And one day it will find me again. I've been told to leave my past behind, but it's not that easy. Not when your past is a living, breathing nightmare that never leaves you. And I've come to accept that the nightmare is real. It's always been real. It's been months now since I left Detroit. Jake and I don't speak much anymore. I don't blame him. I wouldn't want to be around someone like me either. I can see the fear in his eyes when he remembers those nights. When I left, I thought I could escape. But no matter how far I run, the whispers follow. The knocking, the scratching, the ever-looming presence. It never stops. I moved to a small town in Ohio, hoping that the distance from the city would give me some peace. I found a quiet house on the outskirts, isolated from the noise, far from any memories of 1407 East Grove. I thought it would be enough. I thought I could rebuild my life. But nothing works that way, does it? The house felt empty. At first, it was just the usual eeriness of living alone in a new place. But then, the signs started appearing again. I thought I was going crazy. I thought I was just imagining things. But then, one night, I saw it. I was sitting in the living room, late, trying to relax with a book. It was a stormy night. Rain tapping against the windows, thunder rumbling in the distance. I heard the creaking of the floorboards above me. I froze. My stomach turned, and my heart raced. The house was empty. I was alone. But there it was again. The unmistakable sound of footsteps, dragging slowly, heavily, across the floor above me. I went upstairs, my pulse hammering in my ears. The floorboards groaned beneath my feet as I made my way down the hall to the room above the living room. I opened the door, and my breath caught in my throat. There was nothing, just the dark emptiness of an unused room. I tried to convince myself it was just the storm. Old houses creak, they settle. But the uneasy feeling didn't leave me. It stayed with me, creeping into every corner of the house, into my mind. I went to bed that night, but sleep never came. I just lay there, staring into the darkness. The wind howled outside, but in the silence of my room, I heard something else. Something faint, almost imperceptible. Whispers, soft, like the rustle of leaves in the wind, but distinct and unmistakable. You can't run. It's coming. I felt the blood drain from my face. The whisper was so close, like it was right beside me. I turned, heart pounding, but no one was there. The whispers didn't stop. They followed me. They whispered all night, and the next night, and the next. At first, it was easy to dismiss it, just my mind playing tricks on me. But then things started moving. Small things. A cup on the kitchen counter that wasn't where I'd left it. The creaking of the floorboards in the hallway, as if someone were walking just outside my door. The worst part? The reflection. One morning, I walked past the hallway mirror and saw it. It wasn't just my own reflection. There was something else, something standing just behind me, its features obscured by darkness. It was a shadow, but a shadow that moved. I whipped around, but there was nothing there. Still, the feeling of eyes on me never left. I tried to tell myself it was just the light, or maybe my mind playing tricks. But I knew something was here. And then, one night, it happened. The door to my bedroom slammed open. I jumped up, my heart racing, but the room was empty. Still, the air felt thick, heavy with something unspoken. And that's when I saw it. The thing from 1407 East Grove. It was standing at the foot of my bed. Tall, skeletal, its hollow eyes staring at me. The mouth stretched in a wide, unnatural grin. The same figure. The same presence. It stepped closer, its bony fingers twitching, its eyes never leaving mine. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. I was paralyzed, trapped in my own body, staring at the thing that had followed me here, from Detroit, from that godforsaken apartment. You thought you could escape. It hissed, its voice rasping, like 1,000 nails on a chalkboard. You never will. I tried to speak, to ask it why. Why me? Why this apartment? But the words wouldn't come. I was suffocating, drowning in fear. The thing raised its hand, and I felt the air grow colder. It reached for me, its cold fingers brushing against my skin. I gasped, but I couldn't move. I could feel it pulling at me, pulling me closer, and I knew, deep down, that it was too late. It was too late to run, too late to escape. But then, just as suddenly as it appeared, it was gone. The room went silent. The air went still. I was left, trembling, alone. I'm writing this now because I don't know how much longer I have. I don't know when it will come for me again, but I know it will. The whispers never stop. The knocking never stops. And the figure will never stop hunting me. If you're reading this, don't make the same mistake I did. Don't ever, under any circumstances, stay in apartment 1407 East Grove. Because once it finds you, it won't let you go. I know I said that it would never stop hunting me, that it was just a matter of time before it found me again. But what I've come to understand now is far worse than I ever imagined. I've been moving from place to place, hoping to outrun whatever it was that haunted me. But the more I run, the more I realize that I'm not just running from something. I'm running toward it. That thing from 1407 East Grove is not just a shadow. It's not just a ghost or some demonic entity that can be escaped with distance. No, it's a force, an inescapable presence, a part of the world I've now entered. And no matter how far I run, it's always waiting, always following, always just behind me. Like a dark cloud I can't shake off. I've moved to 3 different cities since that night in Ohio. The whispers still come, soft at first, like a breeze in my ear. Then they grow louder, sharper, and I hear them even when I try to block them out. But here's the thing, no matter where I go, no matter how many doors I lock, no matter how high I build my walls, that figure is always just around the corner. It's always waiting. I've seen it more than once now, in the reflection of a store window, in the shadows of a dark alley, at the edge of my vision, like it's just about to reach out and grab me. I remember the first time I saw it again after Ohio. I had settled in a small town in Arkansas, thinking I had finally outrun the nightmare. But one evening, as I was walking home from the grocery store, I saw it, just like before, tall, skeletal, with hollow eyes and that grin stretched across its face. It stood at the far end of the street, half shrouded in darkness, watching me. I froze. I couldn't move. My heart pounded in my chest as I stood there, staring at it, my breath shallow. I didn't know if it was real or if my mind was playing tricks on me again. But then it moved. Slowly, deliberately, like it was walking towards me. I ran. I ran without thinking, without looking back. I didn't stop until I was inside my apartment, heart racing, sweating, desperate for the feeling of safety. But deep down, I knew it was pointless. I couldn't escape. Not anymore. I've learned something that I wish I could unlearn. It's not just the building. It's not just the apartment. It's not about the physical place. It's about me. It's about anyone who steps into that world, that cursed place, that building. Because once you enter it, you can never leave. The thing, whatever it is, becomes a part of you, and it will follow you wherever you go. I don't know if anyone else has ever had the courage to tell their story. I don't know if anyone else survived. I've never found any trace of the other tenants. But I'm telling you this now because I can't escape. It's too late for me. The thing, the figure, it's already inside me. I tried to run from it. I tried to find peace. But peace is something I'll never know again. If you're reading this, if you've ever stayed in apartment 1407 East Grove, or if you've ever felt the whispers, seen the shadows, then you know. You know what I'm talking about. You know that once it gets inside your head, it will never let you go. And if you haven't experienced it yet, if you've never heard the knocking, never seen the figure in the corner of your eye, consider this a warning. Because no matter where you are, no matter where you go, once it knows your name, once it sees you, it will find you. You can't outrun it. You can't hide from it. It's already too late. It's happening. The whispers, the figure, is here. I knew it would come for me again, but I didn't think it would happen this way. I've stopped running. There's no point anymore. I've spent so much time running, hiding, trying to forget that the truth is clear now. There is no escaping it. There is no place to hide. There is only the inevitable. And the inevitable is standing right in front of me. I moved again, this time to a house on the outskirts of town, hoping that a fresh start would work. But I'm not a fool. I knew that the figure would find me, no matter where I went. So I tried something different. I decided to face it. For weeks, I gathered every ounce of courage I had left. I researched everything, every bit of information about 1407 East Grove, the figure, the curse. I contacted experts, occultists, people who might know something, anything that could help me break free of this nightmare. I learned something chilling. What haunts me is not just the building. It's not just a curse. It's an entity, an ancient being that attaches itself to anyone who crosses its threshold. It feeds on fear, on despair. And the longer it follows you, the stronger it becomes. Eventually, it consumes everything. They told me I couldn't get rid of it. There was no exorcism, no spell, no prayer that would make it go away. They said I had two choices. Keep running and live in fear until it takes me, or face it head on. So I waited. I waited for the whispers to come. I waited for the knocking to start. I waited for the thing to show itself, knowing that when it did, it would be my final chance. The last fight. And it came just like I knew it would. It was a night like any other. I was sitting in my living room, the lights off, the silence weighing down on me. The storm outside had stopped, and all that was left was the quiet. I was tired of fighting, tired of running. I knew it was almost over. That's when I heard the knock. It wasn't loud at first, just a soft tap. But then it became a steady rhythm, one that I recognized. The knocks, slow and deliberate, just like the ones in 1407 East Grove. I stood up, my legs shaking, my heart racing. I could feel it coming. That cold presence. That thing. The door rattled as if something was trying to get through. And then the whispers started. "Let me in," it said, its voice low and insistent. "You can't escape. You never could." I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just stood there, staring at the door. The figure was on the other side, and I could feel it. Its cold, oppressive presence filling the space around me. And then the door burst open. There it was. The figure. Just like before, Its tall, skeletal frame, its hollow eyes staring into mine, its mouth stretched in that grotesque, unnerving grin. I felt the air freeze, the temperature plummeting. It reached out, its bony hand extending toward me, the room growing darker with each passing second. And then, for the first time, I spoke. "I know you," I said, my voice trembling but defiant. "I know what you are." The thing paused, as if taken aback by my words. Its eyes narrowed, and I could feel the anger, the hunger radiating from it. It didn't say anything. It just stared. "I know you're just a part of this place," I continued, "and I'm not afraid anymore." The room was freezing now, my breath visible in the air. But I stood my ground, despite the terror clawing at my chest. "You feed on fear, but I'm done running. I'm done hiding." The figure stepped closer, its grin widening, as though amused by my defiance. And then it lunged at me. I closed my eyes, bracing myself for what would come next. But nothing happened. When I opened my eyes, the figure was gone. The room was silent. The door, once flung open with force, was now closed. The air was still and the cold had lifted. I stood there for what felt like hours, unsure if I had imagined the whole thing, unsure if I had truly faced the entity or if it was just another nightmare. But when I looked into the mirror, there was something different. For the first time in years, I didn't see the figure standing behind me. There was no shadow, no hollow eyes, just my reflection. I can't say for sure that it's over. I don't know if the thing will ever truly leave me. But for now, for the first time in a long time, I feel something I thought I'd lost forever. Peace. Maybe that's the trick, you see. You can't outrun it. You can't hide from it. But you can face it. And when you do, you take back control. The nightmare doesn't stop. It never truly ends. But you can stop running. And in that moment I realized I wasn't just escaping the thing. I was escaping myself.